Greetings, and welcome to L.A. Quill. Today we're diving into Chapter 22 of Arianna's tale. She was tired, hungry, and her back hurt enough to bring tears to her eyes with every step her horse took. Arianna knew that she would never again take a warm bed for granted. She would also never travel alone again if there was any other option. She had spent 3 nights now in the desert, curled up next to her horse. It had been cold, and once the sun disappeared, the scorpions had come out of hiding. She was lucky that Jasmine, her beloved palfrey, warned her of them, or she would have been stung several times during each night she had passed in this desolate place. And it didn't seem as if tonight would be any better. Worse, maybe. It seemed colder and harsher than the previous 3 nights, and that didn't bode well for her. She knew that she didn't have the strength to make it back to Crown City when this was over, not without help. She was counting on the fact that Damek would surely follow his betrothed. She knew somehow that she was going to need him, and she trusted him to help her, to come for her, regardless of how angry he might be. And she was more than willing to deal with his anger if only he would come for her. She didn't relish the idea of having to face him, but it was better than being stuck out in the desert alone. Arianna looked at the sky. The sun would soon set. She was close to her destination now. The mountains rose up before her, and she was ready to enter the gully. She'd managed to sneak past the small outpost of Jalara, but just barely. If it had been anything like Dupre, she would never have managed it. No one expected anyone to come through the gully, however, so only a token force was stationed anywhere near it. The sense of urgency which had driven her from Crown City was increasing. She pressed Jasmine into a canter, ignoring the pain in her back, knowing that she had to reach Darian before he and Tarius were swept into the river. "Well, we're wasting time standing here talking. Might as well get on with it," Darian said, surveying the raging river before him. He would be glad to see the last of the gully and was anxious to move on. The excursion hadn't been fun for either of them. It had been almost 6 weeks since his sister had been taken. 5 weeks, 4 days if anyone was counting, which Darian was. He and Tarius had been crossing the gully for the last 3 of those, after having resupplied at Floria, the Republican outpost near the gully. Bolin had caught up with them in Floria and urged them to return to Sitha. Darian had, quite predictably, refused to comply with the wishes of his father. Bolin had given up the argument and had simply wished them well. He'd promised that he'd make some excuse to King Cadfael. At this point, everyone agreed that Cadfael had overreacted to Darian's departure, though no one would tell the king that to his face. It just wasn't healthy to confront the king, not over issues relating to his son. Crossing the gully hadn't been easy, but with the help of the hired mage, they'd found a way around the strange energy field that had blocked their way. The edges of it were very weak, almost as if it was very old, and the mage had been able to create a temporary hole to allow them passage. They hadn't encountered much else to bar their way, unless you considered a giant glacier and several mean rivers obstacles. Darian didn't, not anymore. He and Tarius had managed to cross each one. The mage hadn't made it. The man had been killed while scaling one of the many sheets of ice surrounding the rivers, falling into the deadly ice below. The 2 friends had tried to save him, but they'd been free climbing at the time. Without any ropes or anchors, they couldn't exactly grab him in midair, not without killing themselves in the process. For their part, Darian and Tarius had suffered several injuries each. Tarius had dislocated his shoulder, and while Darian had managed to get it back into place, there was still a deep pain in the bones. He'd also hit his head and now wore a bandage across his forehead. Darian had almost broken his leg crossing one of the rivers. They tended to wade across one at a time with a rope stretched between them. While attempting this, Darian had lost his footing, and before Tarius could pull him back, he'd had his leg almost crushed between 2 rocks. That had been a week ago. Before that, he'd been stabbed with a razor-sharp icicle just below his lung. It still stung and bled a little sluggishly since he kept pulling at the wound while he was climbing. All that was in addition to the relatively minor cuts and scrapes they'd both suffered. It hadn't been an easy journey, but Arianna was worth it, to both of them. Darian refused to think about the return voyage, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. For one, they would have Arianna with them, and unless something had changed in the last 3 years, she didn't have the skill to climb sheer ice. And since they'd lost their mage, neither had any idea how they'd get past the energy field. Those were problems for another day. Today, they were crossing the last of the raging rivers. Tarius was watching the river as well. He glanced at the sky, seeing that the sun would be down soon. Maybe we should wait until morning. The river's not going anywhere. Darian shook his head. This looks like the last river we'll have to cross. If we can get to the other side, I'm sure there will be enough kindling to light a small fire. I don't know about you, but I'm cold to the bone. They had both been shivering for days. Since they had run out of kindling over a week ago, that wasn't surprising. Tarius was cold and hungry. They'd eaten nothing but preserved meat for a while now. He could do with some real food. He was hoping they'd find some in the Empire, even if they had to hunt for it. Or steal it. He'd steal a little food if it was hot. Slowly, Tarius nodded. All right, but we better get moving. We don't have much light left. They got the ropes out, and after tying themselves together, they started across. Darian went first, with Tarius braced on the shore to pull him back if he slipped. They had found a location where there was a small deposit of rocks, allowing them to keep their heads above water. Since the current was too strong to swim, this was to their benefit. They had crossed rivers that easily came above both their heads, and it had been a harrowing experience. Darian moved with extreme care. This river was stronger than the others. It took several moments for him to reach the center. He was relieved since the hardest part seemed to be over. He kept moving, slowly but surely, certain now that he'd make it across in one piece. Seemingly from out of nowhere, a wave, one larger than any of the others, hit him, causing him to slip on the rocks beneath his feet. He couldn't keep his balance, and there was nothing to hold on to. Before he knew what was happening, he was swept into the swift current of the river. Tarius grabbed the rope and pulled, knowing he had to help his friend. They'd done this before. Both of them had, at one point or another, fallen into a river. This current was stronger, but the method was the same. Tarius would slowly pull the rope in, while Darian climbed up the rope from his end. It had worked before. Darian was struggling to keep his head above water. This river had monstrous waves that threatened to drown him before he could be pulled to safety. He wasn't panicking, not yet, but he was close. He couldn't just climb the rope, not in this current. Another wave hit him, and his head collided with a rock. The world went dark. Tarius saw his friend disappear under the waves, and all he could do was keep pulling on the rope. If he went in after him, they'd both die. It felt like his arms were separating from his body. He didn't know if he could haul Darian back to the shore, but he wasn't going to let go, not even if holding on cost him his own life. Arianna could hear the deafening roar of the river, but she couldn't see it just yet. She urged Jasmine to an even faster pace, praying that the horse wouldn't stumble or break a leg. A broken leg wouldn't help her save her brother, and Jasmine certainly didn't deserve such a fate. As the river finally came into her line of sight, she spotted Tarius on the opposite bank. He was too far away for her to see him clearly, but she knew it was him. He was holding a rope, pulling with all his might, straining not to be swept into the raging river. Arianna urged Jasmine to her fastest pace, knowing she had to get there before Tarius was pulled in. She had to save them, and she had to do it now. She was their only hope, and there wasn't a moment to spare. Before she could get to the river's edge, before she could even attempt to render aid, Tarius himself was yanked into the water. Arianna screamed silently in horror. She was too late. And that's our tale from L.A. Quill today. If you enjoyed this chapter, let me know your favorite moment in the comments. Until next time, may your stories always be magical.